You mentioned, personal growth. You went from the political universe into the very Jewish nonprofit space, though obviously with responsibility to the wider world. I'm curious how your role in the ADL has affected you Jewishly.
Well, so what you may or may not know about me is, I was in business most of my professional career, not in politics. But my wife worked for the ADL for many years.
Oh, I did not know that.
My wife, when we first met back in Los Angeles, 99, 2000, she was working at the ADL office as an associate regional director on Santa Monica Boulevard. And while we were dating, and then while we got engaged, and then we got married, and then we had our first kid, and then we had our second kid, my wife worked at ADL maybe for 7 or 8 years. I think I've now worked at ADL longer than she did, but she was there for a long time. And so I share that, though. And then when we lived in Washington, D.C., she worked for Israel on Campus Coalition.
Okay.
And then she worked for the Jewish Federation. So my wife has been the person who's done...
She was like the Jewish nonprofit professional.
Yeah. And I was a make money person.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a bit of a role reversal in terms of our family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we have I didn't say this, I guess. I said this in the pre-interview. We have a kosher home. We go to synagogue on Saturdays. We observe Shabbat. We're not Shomer. Don't give me too much credit. But, we don't work on Shabbat, and I haven't done it for years. I worked at the White House. White House is a hard place to work, but this is who I am. And I say Israel is a huge part of our life. We're a very Zionist family. We've had a blue box on our shelf, forever.
Yeah.
I say all of this because the role at ADL was the first time I was sort of Jewish publicly.
Correct. And I'm curious how, for me, I would imagine if having your background that would actually, I would find it actually pressurize my Jewish engagement because it's synthetic. It could feel like I like keeping that, at least in a small corner of the Jewish community. I don't like the fact that my Jewish persona or Jewish identity is a part of my job description. It's actually harder. So it's harder to talk about growth. And I'm curious, stepping out and having to be a public-facing Jew as a part of your job description, how that affected your relationship to Jewish engagement itself.
I think it's a very good question. I think there are a few things. So first of all, when I used to go to the Kiddush table, after Shabbat in L.A., nobody bothered me. Really.
Yeah.
I had some successful businesses. Nobody knew. And then when I was at the White House, and I would go to the Kiddush table after Shabbat, people would want to talk to me about, is President Obama this, that, whatever. Now, it's crazy. Now, when people are literally, walking around with the Sefer Torah, they want to talk to me about ADL. It's crazy. And then, of course,
that can be hard.
I'm just like, I'll talk to you later. Yeah. Literally, I'm davening.
Yeah.
So later. Strange. So I will also say everyone has an opinion, right? And
I'm familiar with the Jewish people. Yeah, exactly. We've met.
Exactly. So everyone has an opinion about everything we've done. And I often find it amazing, too, because I don't think it's interesting, too. I did not appreciate. I took over this job, and I succeeded Abe Foxman, who's a giant.
Yeah.
Who was sort of omnipresent in Jewish communal life, in the public conversation. And so he was a hard person to replace in some ways, especially because he was this titan, and here I was, I no public Jewish
Correct.
experience.
It felt like an outsider almost to Jewish organizational
wasn't even a
space.
lawyer. Yeah, I sort of wasn't from central casting, you could say. All that being said, even though my wife worked here, I didn't appreciate how central people felt ADL was to their lives. I'm amazed at how people track what we do. I'm amazed at how people watch not just every tweet, but, David, any change to our website, any public utterance of any kind, people will quiz me on. And I say to myself, I didn't even know we did that. So what has been peculiar has been, number one, how being in this public role in the Jewish community has touched all of my engagement with the Jewish community. But I also think, number two, this is a fraught time for our people on many levels, not just post 10/7, but again, I think the diminished participation in organized religion, the sort of ascent of secularism, the complexity presented by a digitized environment, the widespread skepticism or even cynicism, if you want to put it that way. I think all those things create, and by the way, the disaffection of young people with institutions. So I think all this creates a very complicated stew that's hard. And I say this because, to your question, the thing that I find challenging and yet redemptive about the work is I'm able to engage in those things in a way where I'm able to try to make a difference. And to me, that's quite rewarding, right? Stated differently, if I were on the outside watching these kind of different forces sort of orbit around and impact our community, I think it would be somewhat frustrating.
Yeah.
And I'd want to be engaged in that. And the fact that I am engaged in it every single day, you could argue I'm doing a bad job, you think I'm doing a great job, or somewhere in between, whatever. Like that to me is almost therapeutic, because rather than be an observer, if you will, I'm on the field.
Exactly.
And that is, for me, it's gratifying. It's not easy, though, which gets to maybe the last point. Like for me, being Jewish is not something I can turn on or turn off. It's how I see the world. I see the world as the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. I see the world as the husband of a Jewish political refugee, right? I see the world. I always have. It's not new. And yet, as a head of the ADL, whereas I would see the world this way, now this is my entire world. You understand?
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's like you stepped into you became a rabbi in the middle of your life. You're obviously not a rabbi, but
Definitely not. Don't
no, but
confuse
it's
me
that
with-
feeling, the expectations, the Jewish expectations that you have communally
Yeah.
changed very dramatically.
No, definitely. And a lot of people have, I mean, I often think of that Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. I have no delusions of grandeur over here, so please do not confuse me with someone of great power. But I do think, as the head of the ADL, there's a lot of, people impute to the role a great deal of significance. And it is significant. I'm not trying to downplay it, but I feel very responsible. And so again, whereas I think some people may think I'm to this or to that, as people who work here know, we approach every decision, we approach every statement, we approach everything we do with tremendous, tremendous care. Care and deliberation and thoughtfulness. And sometimes I don't even think we move quickly enough. But because we literally, in an almost Talmudic way, like deliberate, and is this the right way to approach it?